Hello and welcome to today's episode of Insights interview series. And I'm thrilled to be joined by the fabulous Jacki Mitchell, marketing therapist from Brandstorm, someone who I've had the pleasure of working with, well, since 2006 actually, at the Melbourne Commonwealth Games, but we've kind of had parallel lives sharing similar roles at just different points in our life. And I'm thrilled to welcome Jacki. Thank you for joining us.
Good fun, George, always.
And what we're really going to focus on today is about businesses and how businesses are responding and communicating during this time. And obviously with all of Jacki's extensive marketing background, there was no better person to chat about around this. So I thought, Jacki, we'd start off perhaps pre-COVID and what you were seeing with regards to how businesses were engaging with their customers and how people were, what sort of the climate was and what people were doing well.
Yeah, okay, that's probably a good place to start. I think there was a lot of resistance to technology, and I've gone back through some of my notes in prep for today just to sort of consolidate some thinking around this, just to not waste anyone's time, which is important at the moment, is that I think there was a lot of resistance to technology. So I was using the word unprecedented before it became the buzzword. So business was going through unprecedented change from a technological point of view. And those that were embracing technology, particularly things like retail using omni-channels, a number of different channels for that, were doing really well. And there was a lot of resistance, particularly 50 pluses who went, you know what, I don't need to do that. I've been doing the same thing. I've been getting in the car and going to work to the office and sort of doing the same thing and quite resistant. And I had a number of colleagues and friends who had teenage children, and they'd say, I'd ask them something about social media or something from a personal perspective. I don't know how to do it. I'll just get my children to do it. And I go, well, get them to teach you how to do it. Oh, no, I'm too old for that. So there was that real sort of rigid mindset was what I was seeing. And those that had more of a growth mindset were doing quite well. And so I think mentioning the C word now, I think that's changed meaning, and language has certainly changed a bit now, is that I think this has forced that. It's forced a lot of businesses now to think about technology and embrace it and see how the ways that they could use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we caught up last year and talked about the old sort of term of business to business or business to customer, and that people were starting to really look at human to human with their interaction. What were you seeing happening around that? And, you know, are there any examples that really stood out to you before we came into the current climate?
Yeah, well, it's always an interesting concept. It's interesting now with human to human, like you and I are doing human to human, but we're not actually physically seeing each other. But those that understand the customer, and this is the biggest tip today from any business watching this, is that it's really hard not to think about yourself at the moment and your business, because good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs have actually gone right back to the basic of, you know, there's fear and safety and all those basic needs at the moment. But have a stop and be mindful about your customers' needs. What are your customers doing right now? What do they need? And Marketing 101, Georgie, and anyone who knows me knows I bang on about this all the time, is that particularly for a small business, it's much easier to fulfill a need than create one. So there's lots of needs that have been created because of the environment. So how can you then fulfill those needs? And I've seen a number of businesses rotate really well in response to that. Yesterday, a local hairdresser, she's gone online and she's created hair product colour that you can colour from home. And she's created these packages that you can then pick up. Now, what she's done that's really clever, and this is a good example of something that someone has done it well, is that she knows what her customer wants. She knows what colour they get put in their hair or what treatment they get or what their style is. And she's gone back to her current database. So it's about retention, not acquisition. So there's some messages there. Look at your current customer base, get to know them. Look at retention first, because history has shown us time and time again those businesses that continue marketing themselves during a crisis will always come out better than those that don't. So I think that's really important, is being mindful of what your customers' needs are right now, and then rotating your business or adjusting it, adapting it, pivoting is another word, to see if you can actually fulfill some of those needs.
Yeah, there's so many points I want to pick up from in that one quickly, and I've talked about this before, but I heard a great quote, and it was to do with fundraising and sort of, I guess, the assumption from charities that they shouldn't advertise for fundraising because, you know, during a time like this. But as you say, all the research shows that people that invest in marketing come out of recessions. Not only they come out of them and they survive, they're stronger and they bounce out of them. And the same with fundraising, people still give money. And I heard this great quote: if you're not in the market, people will still donate. They just won't donate to you. And I think a lot of businesses haven't quite realised that if you go quiet and you are silent during this period, you can't just come back, you know, in 6 months' time or 12 months' time and say we're back and expect you're going to get that customer loyalty back. And I've released a blog a couple of weeks ago about, you know, don't be the fair weather friend that just drops off the radar and expects to come back when the good times are back. That it's so important to stay in touch. The hairdresser one I love, and what I was really fascinated, and I want to chat to you next about when you started seeing businesses responding to COVID. But what I was fascinated to see was how the hospitality industry pretty much had to change overnight. You know, local cafes, restaurants, bars, they didn't have time to rework, you know, and do these big business plans. They actually had to do it really quickly because their whole business model was affected by the restrictions. And I've seen gourmet pubs become gourmet grocers, but not just become gourmet grocers. They're selling the ingredients of some of their famous meals that they serve in the restaurant. So you can be cooking, you know, their famous duck dish at home, and you get all the ingredients. So they're understanding the emotional attachment people have to the pub, the knowledge they have of the menu, and then they're allowing people to create that at home. And they're smart enough to not worry that people will go, well, I don't need to ever come in again because I can cook it at home. That they're keeping that visibility and that emotional and that loyalty with the customer ready for when they, you know, open back up. So I've loved seeing what the hospitality industry have done because they had to do it. But when did you start seeing businesses realise they were going to have to change, and well, some that had to change and maybe others that were a bit slower?
Yeah, well, prior to coronavirus pandemic, businesses that were struggling, and it was too late. It was too late. You know, 54% of businesses survive after 3 or 4 years. 54, that's half. So about half, right? So half fail. So this might actually get people sharpening up a little bit of that. I don't know there's so many reasons why they would fail. So I'd see them going, I need to do something different, but it was too late. And the most common reason was lack of planning, always a lack of planning. I can't tell you how many people, the entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses who don't have any sort of plan, just do it. It can be a one page, you can spend 10 minutes doing it. It doesn't have to be complicated, but have some sort of plan about it. But it's about fulfilling the customer needs. But back to your point about restaurants, how awesome have they been? That they reacted really quickly. There's those that are selling ingredients, selling meals, because what they've done is gone, well, customers still need that. We don't want to cook every night. We may not be able to go out, but we can create a little restaurant at home. We can create it outside, or we can do something a little bit groovy there. And so they've actually responded to those needs really well. It's like the distilleries are now making hand sanitizer. So they had the alcohol ingredient. And so they've just, again, rotated their business to do that. And just to go back to that rotation, my 3 R's on what businesses are doing at the moment. There's those that are resilient. So they're flexible. They, you know, Aldi, Woolworths, Coles, they're fine. They've had the biggest growth in such a long time. They're doing really, really, really well. Obviously, software like Zoom has created as many users in February as they did a whole of 2019. So Zoom really cornered that with the stability of connection and also the different features they have as well. That's a whole nother conversation, another whole case study, which we could go down to. It's a really good brand case study of how Zoom has captured our imaginations and that.
Exactly. And I'm not sure if you saw Hamish Blake, the comedian, had a series, Zoom for One More. And he said, I'm sitting here, everyone's busy with all their Zoom meetings. I've got none, so let me drop into yours. And it was hilarious. But it just showed how powerful that brand had become.
Yeah, and it's a great brand name. It's short. It's Zappy, Zappy. Lots of Z. There's not a lot of brands starting with Z. There's some really good case studies in why that has worked really well. But just back to my 3 hours. So we've got the resilience, right? Then the next one is the repair. So those companies like the restaurants, those have gone, okay, we're not resilient. We need to, we're not flexible. We need to look at fixing things. We need to repair our business. So they've done that really well. And they've rotated quite successfully there. Then there's the third group, which I'm going to call the Respite group or the refrigerator group, where they've just frozen. They've just gone, that's it. That's it. My business is gone. I don't have any work. I'm done. I can't think of anything.
Do you know what I saw? Well, I'll talk about a couple of examples I saw. So the South Melbourne market, which is a great market in South Melbourne that is still open, practicing obviously all the social distancing, and it's just food outlets that are open there at the moment. But they've also acknowledged that they don't want it to become crowded, and some people might not become comfortable coming. So they've remained open, but they've created a click and pick, a drive-through service. So you order online and then you drive through and pick up your delivery on a Thursday. So they're understanding if you're not comfortable coming and shopping, it's okay, we've created this service.
Well, it's back to customer needs, Georgie. Like, what are the customers needing at the moment?
Do you know what I loved seeing over Easter was I don't know, I didn't see any examples in Australia, but certainly in America, drive-in church services. So that, the pastor or the minister came out on a stage with a simple microphone and an amp, and all the congregation just came and parked in their cars like a drive-in movie. I mean, how simple, but they could still feel connected rather than just watching a service online.
Yeah.
So I think, it doesn't need to be these massive production things, or, they don't have to sort of solve the world's problems with the way they adapt, but just small things can really work.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, you've reminded me, I'm going to check out to see how Dramana Drive-In's going. You would think that they would be busy.
They should be. And I know early on stories about drive-in started to pop up, but I don't know whether the drive-ins got on board and have realised this is a real growth period for them.
So new habits are forming. So back to the customer. Think about your customer. That's my big takeaway today. What are your customer needing, not wanting? What do they need? Let's start with a really basic need. What are they needing? So that is a great example of that. And it's also seen a lot of animal shelters are running out of animal, which is fantastic because people are needing some company, and of course they don't get the virus. So there's lots of examples of what customers are needing right now. But what's really surprised me from a marketing perspective? I'm seeing a digital bottleneck. I don't want any more emails about COVID-19. I am sick of reading about your business and how we know that. So, and don't sell me stuff. So just be careful of your tone for sales. So there's this real digital bottleneck. Okay, yeah, we are spending more time online. So let us go back, Georgie, to say 1995, just putting it out there. When you went down to your letterbox and you'd open the letterbox, you'd have 2 letters and then there'd be a whole lot of direct mail fly out. Well, I'm going down to my letterbox now. Mail's still happening. There's no DM. Why aren't people doing DM? You want to get cut through? You want to continue create a really good direct marketing piece, email it to your current customers. So it's about retention, not acquisition. This is about keeping the same customers. And those customers will then maybe buy more stuff from you, whatever it is you're selling, or they will then refer you on to their tribe. So DM, I'm still shocked. I can't believe no one's done that yet.
But do you know what I did? I had to post some things for work. So I was in the post office and I bought a whole bunch of postcards of Melbourne and my stamps. And I'm going to send a postcard of Melbourne to my parents who live in Melbourne, but we're all stuck having these staycations. So I thought, how fun. They don't know this yet, so hopefully they've received it before this airs. But you know what, like we can still do fun things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pen pal clubs, you know, rising up out of nowhere because people want to write letters and feel connected.
When you're communicating or marketing to your customers, don't add to their anxiety and don't share your anxiety on. Like, you're positive, I'm positive and optimistic. We are by nature, and we can see the potential here. But that doesn't mean we're perfect either. You know, both of us there's different struggles with going through this. And I think mindset's really key, your business mindset. And that is obviously linked to your mental health as well. So I think as much as the physical health, which has been great, that people are exercising more and bikes and all that sort of thing, which is fabulous. So putting that in your schedule. So I'm saving about 15 hours a week in travel time. So I did the maths and I went, right, 15 hours. Okay, what am I going to do with those 15 hours? I might get a bit more sleep. Yep, tick. I'm going to exercise at least an hour a day. And that exercise can be doing a workout online or just taking the dogs for a walk, something. But invest in that and then doing more reading. So then I'm going to read an article once a day, or I'm going to make a phone call to one person or something. But looking at that and just being a little bit more, just planning, I suppose, or mindful of that, but also being conscious of your mindset, conscious of your mental health and your mental health of your customers and those around you as well. And you're going to have bad moments or bad days. So one of the techniques is grounding. I don't know, you've probably heard of this before, but
Yes.
It's about bringing your mindset back to the present, right now, what's happening right now. So at times I can be worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. Oh God, you know, if we go to recession, what's going to happen? And sometimes that can be quite overwhelming. So what I'll do is I'll go outside and take off my shoes and put my feet on the grass, or I'll listen to a bird or watch a bee on the lavender, or do something that brings me right back into the present. And I breathe, you know, breathing, it's one of those. So we just need to somehow have a few, in our little toolkit, some tricks up our sleeve, just to help manage those things.
Absolutely. And it's just reminded me, we'll get to this next about the different stages we go through with something like this. But that first stage, which we probably just moved out of, but that shock of it's here, we've got to adapt, you know, it's going to affect businesses and it is going to change the way we behave. Some of the emails and EDMs I was receiving from people, and I'll give you a couple of examples. So I had one that was from an online project management tool. And this was really early on, and they didn't try and sell me anything more. They just said, it was actually just a welfare thing, and it reminded us of the highlights of what their management tool can do, and that we've got this, and it was really structured and positioned so well. I then got an email and a phone call from an online booking platform that I've used for some events, where it was panic. And they even, I think they used the word panic in the email. And this is before events had been restricted. So we were still in that phase of, will events go ahead, will they won't? And it was just fascinating to see how different people responded. Then I got an email, which was very much, was very much from, I think, this organisation's point of view, which is a dog kennel that we send our dog to when we go away. And it's an amazing one, and we love them to death and we'll always use them. But they sent out an email saying, how are you? Are you okay? We often ask about, you know, we care about the dogs, but we haven't asked about you. If you need help, let us know. If you need us to bring you groceries, let us know. And it was like, oh, okay, I think you've freaked out and you're trying to do something, but you've gone so far off what your brand is. Apart from the fact you're not trained in mental health and to deal with, crisis support, but you could see that they weren't coping, and this is how they tried to, to fix it. And it was very well meaning, but it was just way off what it should have been.
Yeah, so in psychological terms, it's called projection, and that's been happening a lot. I know my gym, I just suspended the membership because the gym closed, and then I got an email from them saying your membership's been suspended. We understand that you've had to suspend it due to financial difficulties. And I've gone, that's actually not the reason. And I was sort of mildly offended, going, they've just assumed that they've projected because they're worried about their financial situation.
Yeah.
So they've gone to, this is another example of something they're trying, which I love that, but they haven't quite got it right. So they've gone all online. So you can reactivate your membership for all online, full price. So I've gone, hang on, I'm not doing that. I can't use the equipment. I'm not using your facility. Surely you can have an online price.
Yep.
Right? Rather than your complete membership. So they haven't quite got that right yet. And so it's about going back to your customers and making sure it's valuable to what your customers want. The other thing I found, Georgie, which is the dark side, speaking to a lot of colleagues, they've been getting people ringing and going, oh, can you reduce my invoice because of the crisis we're in? My business is not going. Can you do this for free? Now, don't ask consultants to do stuff for free. I mean, you and I both run businesses, and so we're certainly giving, and this is what we're doing right now is giving. We post a lot of articles, we do a lot of stuff, we give back a lot of stuff. And it could be your business, for instance, rather than giving something for free, just say, oh, free postage rather than donating. There's lots of ways that you can give, right? So I've got a lot of people contacting me, and I'll give them 5 minutes, and I'll go, it's 5 minutes and that's it. So just be careful of the free thing. Because that will put a business in ruin. The R word again, another R word. So don't do that. If you're struggling, then there's ways around that. There's ways to do that. There's a lot of support. I noticed that Facebook has a support group on there. There's lots of support around from the councils and local government. They've got a lot of programs that they're running now. So there's lots of help out there. But I think that whole bombarded, projecting your anxiety onto your customers, and this is where this awareness, so this is happening subconsciously. So my advice would just be to maybe chat it through with someone and be a bit more conscious of what's happening in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a member of a very large networking, well, sort of a business networking group, call it, and I seem to get an email from them every day saying, sign up to this webinar, do this, do that. And of course, there's great stuff, and I'm not taking away from that, but every day I'm getting an email from them, and I'm starting to think, should I be going to that? Am I missing out if I don't go? Have I not upskilled in this? And I know from my point of view, I've had to really watch how I behave during this, because I'm a very energetic person, and I love to present, and I love to do lots of things, and I keep finding myself going, oh, and I could do this, and this might help people, but then I've got to come back to my plan and go, okay, it's too much. So I've got an expectation, my database will get an email, and I've said they'll get an email every fortnight during this, or every week, and in that email they'll get this and this, and then I have our online huddle, but I don't need to keep creating things, because it'll overwhelm people. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about that tech bottleneck. I saw someone write on LinkedIn, what happened to just ringing people? Why do we have to catch up on Zoom each time? Why can't we just have a phone call? Yeah. And I know with a lot of clubs and community groups that have obviously lost their sort of membership base where they all come together. So they're thinking, oh, we've got to go online. But in fact, if you just made a phone call to 3 or 4 members each day to check in on them, that speaks volumes, and is going to build more loyalty than inviting them to 20, webinars and catch-ups.
Exactly. And back to my hairdresser earlier, I thought that was really clever. So what she's done is she's contacted each of her customers and said, for instance, Georgie, we know that you get your hair coloured once every 8 weeks, whatever. This is the colour you like. We also know you like a treatment because you've got frizzy hair and you like it straight, blah, blah, whatever it is. So she's created these take-home packs with instructions and the products that she gets access to that you and I probably don't because it's from a wholesaler.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, I'm just thinking, is she going to sell bowls to get your hair cut? I don't know. I mean, how do you cut your hair? Maybe she could do instructions of, if you've got for a fringe, you know, how to chop it or what scissors. Maybe she could sell equipment like scissors. I don't know.
Exactly. And what she's realised is if she doesn't do this, someone else will do it. And in that time where we're all sitting at home with our bad hair, and suddenly there's a hairdresser doing stuff online and we start watching them, and it's not that we don't want to go back to our own hairdresser, but we start to build a relationship with someone else because they're there, they're talking to us, we're watching them each day, we're enjoying it. So naturally our loyalty starts moving over, not from any bad will towards our original hairdresser, but this one has actually stepped into that void. So she's understanding, she's keeping that level of visibility, she understands what the customer needs. And they'll be busting to go back into that salon at the end of it, and she won't have lost any of those customers.
No, and there's also these subliminal brand associations.
Yep.
So she's done that. It is creative and she's in a creative industry. That says to me what she's done. If you actually dig a bit deeper into your subconscious associations, I then go, she is forward thinking. She's creative. She's going to be, to that actually then translate, she's going to be up to date with the latest colors, the latest techniques. I want a hairdresser that's not cutting like 1973. I want a hairdresser that's up to date with that. So I bet from this, she will actually, when this is over, she would increase. She's investing in her business.
Absolutely. And by going to her database, she's actually probably picked up customers that haven't been into the salon for a few years, but she's reconnected. If you're not there, it's too late when we come out of it.
Yeah, and so actually tourism's a good one because at the moment they're in that freeze, they're in the respite, you know, Qantas and the tourism industry. Yeah. And I was chatting to someone the other day about it and they said, oh, well, nothing we can do. I'm just going to stay at home and look after the family and not do anything. And I've gone, well, no, I'd be going back to your customer base and get them dreaming. Get them in the fantasy, tap into that show. You know, when things are right, you can visit this place and this is what it looks like. Here's some pictures, here's a video. Hey, did you know this town did this winery done that? This winery is about to release a latest da-da-da. Here's a review. Continue to invest in that.
Exactly. Can I give you 2 examples that I've seen just in the last 2 days in the tourism industry? Flight Centre I'm getting Flight Centre EDMs and their Armchair Expert series. And I think that's fantastic because at the moment we're all armchair travel experts because we can't actually travel. Then they've done this fantastic video of, you know, about how we love visiting the world, but at the moment we can't. And we've got to stay home and we've got to stay safe. But we can't wait to be there when we're ready to reopen the world. And it's so emotional that they've understood how their customers feel about travel, what travel means to everyone, and they've captured it perfectly. So I love that. And then the second one, I got an email from Accor Hotels today. You can choose one of their hotels and see the live streaming view from the hotel room on the Gold Coast or Sydney Harbour. Like, I think that's fantastic because who doesn't want to look at another view at the moment? And if I start looking at this view from the hotel room on the Gold Coast, where will I want to go for my holiday when we can travel again? That hotel that I've built this, you know, vision with. So there's some really fun and smart things happening.
Yeah, there is. There's some really good stuff happening. And that's a good point, Georgie. Those that are listening to this going, oh, I'm not creative and I'm still not sure, go and have a sticky beak. We all love a sticky beak. At what some other people in a similar industry that are doing. Yes. Okay, so have a look. Go, okay, I'm just going to Google, I'm just going to have a look, do some research, have a look at some other ideas, and that might then inspire you or copy their idea.
Exactly. So we've sort of touched on that. We've gone through that shock phase, and we've had to, you know, we've realised the world's changing. And we're now going to go through more phases, in which I'm constantly saying to people is we need to alter our messaging as we go through each phase. What do you think the next, we've sort of had to pivot and businesses have had to adapt. What do you see as businesses doing next once, because we're sort of now in the bunkering down stage?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to customer need and customer retention, really important. The other thing you mentioned about messaging is about thinking about your key messaging and thinking about words. So I put a tweet out yesterday because I was thinking about language, and things like the C word, that's taken on a new meaning, and you're probably not a good idea to say a campaign's gone viral. It's probably a good idea maybe not to do a brand health check anymore. So don't use terms like I've just written a killer strategy. So be very, very conscious of the words and the language you're using. And the message there is, don't add to your customers' anxiety. Don't add to that. Think about why customers were attracted to your business and brand in the first place. What was it what value did you deliver that made you attractive to customers in the first place? And leverage that as opposed to, projecting your own anxieties onto your customers.
And I think just following on from that is I've seen organisations just attach themselves to COVID, so they've pivoted because of COVID and they're creating all these services. But when we come to whether we say end or whether we come out of it, they actually haven't thought ahead to that time, because their focus is just attaching themselves to this crisis, and how they're going to help people. But they're not thinking about, okay, well, this will end, and we need to actually be delivering a service after this. And I know from an event point of view and communications point of view, we've gone through the shock, but we're now looking 4 or 5 steps ahead. We're starting to look at how events, what sort of moderations we'll need to make to events when we come out of this. Like, will we have handshaking at awards nights? All those kind of things that may be impacted by the current climate. It's not just about, okay, this current sort of phase we're going through.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. There's been a number of different views, and I haven't quite formed mine yet. So, it's a bit of a day by day. Things are changing so quickly. But when this is over, do we go back to normal, and what does that look like? I'm not sure the changes will be as big as a lot of people are saying. I think a lot of people will go, okay, we're just going to go back to what we were with some minor changes. I think it'll be reflective of the individual and how quickly they are to adapt and embrace it. And I think a lot of it will come from the top. As you know, the fish rots from the head. So how CEOs, business owners, what changes they're going to make. But I can also see a few employees actually going, you know what, this might work. So there might be more of a holistic approach to this. I hope so. About, okay, what was good, what was bad, what's going to work, what's not. I think it'll streamline productivity. Yeah. I think the lazy people will be exposed. I'm seeing early evidence of that already. And it's those that are working hard and doing the right thing are being seen. And yep. Those that are lazy and slack, there's nowhere to hide.
That's going to relate to businesses too. The businesses that haven't done the work. And as we said, it doesn't have to be big budget work. It doesn't have to be, necessarily labor intensive. We're not saying you've got to roll out these new whole campaigns, but it's just, still maintaining that relationship with your customers and understanding them. And the ones that don't do that are the ones that won't either survive or will be incredibly weakened. And it's such a shame because they've actually had an opportunity and I'm not taking away from the fact that their income will be down at the moment. And as an owner of an events agency, I certainly know what that's like. It's incredibly impacted on me, but I also see the opportunities that will come out of it at the end if we keep working together and collaborating. And I still have a community that need help and need guidance on how to run communication campaigns and how to manage volunteers and how to run events. So I really am saddened when I'm seeing businesses that aren't adapting and they can't actually work through what's going on to put them in a position to to be ready and to help their customers during this time.
Yeah, and I think it's also highlighted and consolidated how important it is to use experts. If nothing else, particularly medical experts, you know, there's been some fantastic stuff there. Ask the experts about things like that. If you've never considered a business coach, for instance, consider that, a mentor. Have the support structure around you. Do some learning, do some training. I mean, there's so many opportunities for online training, but I think that's one of the key elements for this online learning environment. It also, I think, fosters a greater reflection. So it gives you or the person doing the lesson more time to think about it. So when they're making comments on a discussion forum, for instance, and they're having to type a comment, they'll think about it a bit more. And that deeper thinking is going to foster greater learning. There's no question about that. And then you look at someone else's comment, and that then will then spark something else in you. And then you're getting some sort of discussion. That's why they're called discussion forums, not Q&As. Some sort of discussion about that. And that is consolidated. And you can go back to that and look at it. Now, if you're in class, someone says something, that's it, it's gone forever. Or if you're at an event or a conference, someone says something, unless it's recorded, it's gone forever. So there are so many benefits to this online environment. Not saying it's the best version. There's not. I think that it's about that combination. It's one of the key ingredients, you know. It's a core ingredient, no question. But we talked earlier, it's about the zig and zag. There's so many different forms to communicate. Not everyone has to communicate via email. Pick up the phone, send a postcard, send a direct mail. Think of different ways that you can actually engage or communicate with who you need to communicate with.
Exactly.
And it's not get creative, but it's actually not even getting creative. It's just thinking about the different ways that you communicate.
Exactly. And giving people different options. So, you know, you're not just doing everything online in the same format. You're allowing your customers to choose, you know, how they'll sort of engage with you online, or as you say, direct mail. I mean, I'd crave a junk mail catalogue at the moment, because I would just sit and absorb it, you know.
I just thought of something else. Sorry, I mean, see, I've interrupted you, George, sorry. But I've just thought of something else. If you've got a content calendar for your social media, go back and revisit it, because new habits are forming. People are on social media now at different times than they were a month or 2 months ago.
Exactly.
And it's easy to look at. Go and look at your Google Analytics on your website. Go to Insights on your social media. It's all there. It's all free. It's easy to look at. And you might be surprised at what times of the day your customers are visiting your site. And if you're feeling a bit despondent, go back and have a look at other businesses that have the same customer base as you, which would be the market. It's a really good place to start. Who's got similar? If you're in tourism and say you're a tourism operator, okay, the obvious one, go and look at what other tourism operators are doing. If you're not getting much joy there, go, okay, what other customers, who else could have a similar customer base to me? And just a bit wider, rather than go deep, go a bit wide with your thinking and go, okay, let's have a look and get some ideas there. I think that will inspire anyone watching this now in business.
Absolutely. It's been so great. I could just keep talking to you for hours, but we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jacki, for joining us and sharing your business and marketing insights and what you've been seeing happening, and wishing you all the best. And not only through this period, but obviously when we, as I said, I don't know what the right term is, we don't come out of it, but when the restrictions are eased and we're socializing again, you know, I look forward to just continuing the great relationships that we've already built.
Yeah, well, I think let's put all this in a pot, boil it, and it's down to customer need. Yeah, I think psychometrics, which we haven't touched on, but it's about measuring customer or consumer behaviour. That's a huge growth area. So anyone listening here who runs a business, works in a business, look at your customers, look at their behaviour, look at their needs, check in on your own behaviour, and that's a really good place to start. And look at the changes. New habits are forming. New habits are forming right now. What are they? And is your business reflective of those?
Yep. That all sounds great. Well, you have a good day and we'll speak again soon.
Always good fun, George. Thanks.
Okay, bye.